Hey, everybody. Welcome to this week's edition, the All-Star Week edition of Alley Talk here on Philly Sports Network. A little bit of a technical difficulty, so we're a few minutes behind. We appreciate those who are already in checking us out. We got some viewers in there. Alex, don't worry. I see your comment. Yes, it is working. We were just a little delayed. Sorry. Little tech issues on our side. If you were waiting in the lobby, if you saw the thumbnail, you know that we are going to do a deep dive into the second half. Of course, we're going to talk trade deadline. It is the season, as they say. Of course, we're going to talk our key players that we need to see more of, or we need to carry the team in the second half. But let's jump right into it, Chris. I think one of the most interesting things about this Phillies team is everybody talked about how maybe they struggled at times through that first half. They still find themselves in first place in the National League East, and things seem to be getting a little bit easier the rest of the way. If you look at the strength of schedule, I think a lot of people have been using Tankathon, but if you go, a lot of people have referenced other various websites that do scores. I think ESPN's RPI has them with the 10th easiest schedule. Tankathon overall, if you're just looking at record of remaining opponents, 13th easiest schedule, putting them in the top half of baseball. Not a lot of other National League contenders down there with them. The Dodgers, of course, but I think we're not worried about the Los Angeles Dodgers here in Philadelphia. More worried about those up I-95 rivals, if you will. Things are going to look pretty good for this Phillies team. Obviously, the number one thing that they've always needed is consistency, and we'll see what happens with the roster as well. But, Chris, we were talking about it beforehand. It's looking like it might be pretty good sledding for them with a easier schedule. Why might it be even better for the Phillies than people even realize?
Well, the fact that the Phillies have the 13th easiest schedule, because when you pull up the website, it's going to present from hardest, and this is Tankathon we're using, hardest to the easiest schedule. So you kind of have to invert it when you're looking at the website. Phillies have the 13th easiest schedule. On the website, the Mets are listed as 7. That is not a good thing. That's the 7th hardest schedule remaining in Major League Baseball. The Atlanta Braves have the 9th hardest, which, I mean, realistically, with Acuna Jr., with some of the injuries to their pitching, it might be a little harder to make the playoffs, but they still are going to have at least something to say over the second half of this season. So the Mets and the Braves have significantly harder schedules at the end of the year. Florida's somewhere in the middle half there. So Nationals are as well. They're at 14. So, I mean, if for Philadelphia, when it comes down to it, they're going to be playing a lot easier opponents. And for this season, that's very good for the Phillies. Against teams with 500 winning percentages, they're 25 and 27. Against teams with under 500 winning percentages, they're 30 and 14. So the Philadelphia Phillies should have a strong second half just based off of the fact that they're 30 and 14 against teams that are under 500.
Mm-hmm. And it's interesting to me as well. They've really, like you said, been feasting on those weaker opponents. The Rockies, they're 7-0 against. The Marlins, they're 5-2 against. Now, they've gotten past a lot of those real bottom feeders, but they still have another, if I'm correct here, 6 games against Washington, or even 8 games against Washington.
7.
7 games against Washington. You average those out, I'm right on here. They
I mean, just to follow that point up, they got 7 Washington, 4 Atlanta, 6 with Miami still. 3 against the White Sox. There's some teams and some wins there.
Yeah. I think, like you said, the Phillies are really primed for success in the second half. And I think a lot of that as well comes from them losing a lot of games late from their bullpen, which is going to be better post-deadline. They've given up 5 walk-off losses, and they only have 2 walk-off wins. I think you really can attribute a lot of that to poor old Jordan Romano over here, who's been getting thrown into the meat grinder even after we're all aware that he don't got much left. So I think once you get a bona fide closer out there, things are going to solidify in the late innings, and it's going to keep the Phillies in a lot more one-run games, and they're going to win a lot more one-run games because that bullpen is going to be stronger come August and September.
And another thing to note, so they have about the same amount of home versus road games remaining, a little bit more at home, 35 versus 31 on the road. They've played 500 ball on the road, so even if you assume, let's take a guess and just say that for the sake of argument, they go a little bit down in the second half, and it's 15-16. So they're just under 500 instead of on 500. They also have a 65% winning clip at home. So 35 games at home, really high win percentage there. I think that things are looking pretty good for them in the second half. It doesn't start necessarily easily, though. We know they're going to be back home tonight, which is great. They had nice festivities throughout the city, getting excited for next year's All-Star game, which will Philadelphia is the host city, as part of a ton of celebrations that are coming to the town as part of the 250th anniversary of the country. So big moment today, and they hope to get the second half started on the right foot. Ben, you did a deep dive for us on Philly Sports Network, doing a little bit of a preview for this upcoming series. They welcome the Angels to town. Mike Trout on some milestone watch. Is he somebody that we're going to be worried about this weekend, or is there another name? How are you feeling about these Angels coming into Philadelphia this weekend?
Well, I mean, if you're playing LA, the red team from LA, that is, you're always going to be worried about Mike Trout. I see a lot of people who are less informed begging the Phillies to trade for Mike Trout. Guys, it's not going to happen. The Angels aren't moving Mike Trout. Dave Dombrowski is not picking up that contract. It's as much as he would be beloved here, it's not going to happen. Mike Trout has been red hot as of late. He's also due for some regression. And when I say regression, I mean positive regression. His BABIP this year is 272 to a career mark of 340. So a lot more singles and doubles are going to start falling for him as we get into the dog days of summer here. And he's, like I said, heating up. He has 3 home runs in his last 5 games. Comes with, let's see if I get this right on the first try, 8 RBI in that span as well. Mike Trout generally does well in Philly. He's going to have a lot of support here from his hometown of Millville, about an hour outside of Philadelphia. So, yeah, be afraid of Mike Trout, but otherwise, the Angels not that scary. I think on the more interesting side of things, if the Phillies can bury the Angels this week and really push them away from that third wild card spot in the AL, you're going to be looking at Taylor Ward and Joe Adell as some interesting potential trade pieces for the Phillies coming up in about a week and a half for the deadline at this point.
Yeah, I haven't heard too many people talking about Joe Adell. My brother and I have talked about him throughout the season. Really turned on this year after a couple years of being one of those. He looked like he was going to end up being like a quad A guy. Always great numbers at AAA, not necessarily figuring it out at the major league level. He was always a young guy, so you hope that organizations give them a chance. They never really gave up on Adell, and he has paid them those dividends of being patient so far this season. So he's definitely a name. He's under team control a little bit longer. I believe Ward is under contract. I think he has 1 year of arbitration left, right?
Yeah, Ward has.
Is Adell the same?
Adell is 2.5 years of team control
so
left. Ward is 1.5. Yeah,
might cost a little bit more prospect wise, but we know what both of those guys can do. They can slug, and the Phillies need a little bit of help in that department as of late. So definitely guys to keep your eyes on if you're thinking a couple weeks out for that trade deadline.
Yeah, and the other, sorry, Kyle.
No. Go ahead.
The other interesting thing with Adell is that he has been playing center field. Now, it is a bad center field. You probably put it a little bit below where Brandon Marsh is right now, but he can stand out there. You can put him out there and say, well, we're just going to concede the outfield defense, but he's not going to be Odubel Herrera in 2021, let's say. He's going to be bad, but I think if they put him at the corners, you play him for Max Kepler, you're going to be getting a lot of really good defensive production, either in right or left field from Adell. Taylor Ward will give you mediocre defensive production. Not as good a hitter as Adell has been this year, not as good a defender, certainly, but better than Castellanos for sure, and probably on par with Kepler.
And you mentioned earlier about if the Phillies can bury them. They're only 2 games under 500, which seems like somebody who would be ready to sell, but they're also within striking distance, less than 5 games out of a playoff spot. The tough part for them is not only do they have to come to Philadelphia this weekend for a team that's looking to start on fire, they don't have their pitching set yet. They then go from here to New York, who's fighting with Philadelphia for that National League East lead. And then they have to go back home and welcome red-hot Seattle to town before we get to the deadline. So that is a team that if you're paying close attention this weekend, you may find some potential future Phillies, especially with the history that these two clubs have with trades in recent memory. Chris, anything to add on the Angels this weekend?
One guy that I actually really like, I'm probably gonna butcher his name, is Nolan Shanuel.
Yeah, I think
They're
that sounds right.
they're 6'2" first baseman. Again, he's not necessarily a trade candidate. He's hitting 275, 6 homers away from the home ballpark out there in Anaheim, or yes, Los Angeles. So he's always somebody that I've always kept my eye on anytime we play the Angels, just because I think he's a guy that brings some power to their lineup. And again, they've got some ball players in their club that, if you're not paying attention, they can steal one. Right before the All-Star break, their offense was humming. 11 runs against Texas, 6 runs against Arizona, 10 runs against Arizona. So they can hit the baseball. It's just whether or not they can hit the baseball against Philly starters, which have just been unbelievably excellent all season long.
The Angels are not as bad as their record might state. They've got some good talent. That said, they can be that bad. It really depends on the pitching you're facing and, whether Mike Trout's in the lineup or not. And I think with Trout in there, they're probably an above 500 team. But like you said, Chris and Kyle, with the schedule they have coming up before the trade deadline, I think it would take a minor miracle for them to be really in it come July 31st. So I think it's pretty solid that they're going to move some of those pieces.
And so the Shanuel you mentioned, he is a guy who I reference as a possibility. Now, position players a little bit different than pitchers, but when the Phillies drafted Gage Wood with their first overall pick, there was a lot of discussion about, oh man, could he be a guy that the Phillies see in the bullpen this season? Electric fastball. And I don't necessarily think they'll do that, but there is a blueprint for it, and the Angels have done it with this guy, Shanuel. He was called up 40 days after being drafted in 2023 to the major leagues, and he hasn't left. So showed that he can do it at a young age. He was a college player just like Wood. So a little bit of hope if you want to hang on to the Gage Wood in the bullpen, pulling a David Price hope that's out there for some of these Phillies fans. Again, I don't think it happens, but definitely part of the blueprint there. Before we move on from the Angels, we did touch on Mike Trout. Whether he ever dons red pinstripes, I think is
he won't.
I think I'm pretty sure that it'll never happen. But if you want to hold out hope just to have the hometown kid back in Philadelphia for a couple years before he retires, if you're there to celebrate greatness, which I appreciate doing now, as I'm older, I like appreciating greatness in the moment as opposed to hating on it and then reflecting on it afterwards. I remember hating Derek Jeter forever and what an idiot I was, right? But Ben, something crazy going on over there.
I think I'm getting sucked into the Matrix over here.
Ben, we're going to hide you for a moment while you figure out the technical issues. We'll bring Ben back as soon as his tech issues are rectified. But Chris, so what I was going to go into is we mentioned that he has some milestones upcoming. Mike Trout, one of the greatest players of a generation, maybe is starting to slow down a bit as he gets older, starts to get injured a little bit more, maybe permanent DHs in his future, but he's really close to 2 milestones. One, I think he could get while in Philadelphia this weekend. So I would imagine that there's going to be a lot of Millville, New Jersey folks packed in the stands at Citizens Bank Park over the weekend. He's sitting at 395 home runs. So he's only 5 short of 400. He would be one of the quicker players to ever get to 400 home runs. Plenty of time to still get to 500 if he can stay healthy. So it's always fun to see milestones in the moment. I don't think he hits 5 home runs this weekend. However, the more likely scenario, exactly. Yeah. Phillies are in some trouble if Trout's
I still don't like what you're about to say next because I know where you're going.
He's only 5 RBIs away from 1,000 for his career as well. So
if Mike Trout hits a grand slam against the Phillies, send every single message to @Kyle Fisher 45 because that's 4 or 5 RBIs right there.
Well, you may be able to have a little bit of a moment to appreciate greatness while it's in front of you, if he were to reach that milestone here in Philadelphia. So
no, that
obviously I would be. Oh, please no. TR, please no. No, we can't do that. We can't do 5 solo homers. Although if they get to the bullpen quick enough, maybe it's a possibility.
Nola's still on the injury list. We're okay.
Oh, man. I was thinking the bullpen. If they can get to the bullpen early,
Sorry,
send some of
Aaron.
those guys out there. We'll see.
I
But
apologize. You're one of my favorite pitchers ever. I just want to put that one on record.
yeah, no, hey, that's fine. Alex chiming in. The big milestone will be if he has 5 swings without an injury. Ooh, Alex. Hitting him where it hurts. Well, I guess it hurts everywhere, right? If
you could say the same thing about one Bryce Harper too, unfortunately.
Yeah, he's almost getting to that level. Hopefully, for the sake of the game, for the sake of those guys, for the sake of fans everywhere, hopefully both of those guys stay healthy the rest of the year and can stay relatively healthy the rest of their careers. Unfortunately, I did win a bet with a friend when the Phillies signed Bryce Harper. Of course, I loved it. Who doesn't love the move? But I had said at the time, I was like, I bet you a case of beer that in 5 years he's playing first base pretty regularly, and 5th year in his contract he's playing first base regularly. So, not something I was excited about. I did enjoy those libations, but definitely with a little bit of anger and a scowl.
Good thing you didn't save him for a World Series title.
Yeah. Right. Ben, you seem to be back. Is everything good on your end?
Hallelujah. The camera, I've been delivered from the Matrix.
There we go.
The camera is somehow working. Fingers crossed that, I don't get sucked back in anytime soon.
Which one got you out of the Matrix? Red pill or blue pill?
White pill, oddly enough. I didn't know that it existed.
How about that?
Yeah.
All right.
It was always choose the secret third option.
It's funny you said that. In the actual Matrix, the only way to get out was payphones, which don't exist anymore.
I know that.
Secret third option.
Yeah, I think we're screwed now.
You have to go overseas to find a payphone still. So there's got to be one somewhere, right?
There is one at 16th and Christian, which is only 4 blocks from where I live. I could sprint down there right now.
Yeah, let's not. Don't reveal that to everybody. That has to be the secret meeting spot.
I'm actually a plant, guys. I'm sorry. I'm getting the steak right now. Like, that's my dinner tonight. Hugo Weaving is coming to my apartment, and he will be cooking it for me.
Oh. Well, fellas, we talked about it's not getting easy for the Phillies really quickly out of the break. Right after the Los Angeles Angels, who were hot coming into the break, their offense was firing on all cylinders for the first time in quite some time. Unfortunately for the Phillies, they will then take on a team who's currently on a 10-game win streak in the Boston Red Sox, thought to be potentially out of it and sellers at the beginning of the month, now sitting at 53-45 in that final wild card spot, only 3 games behind the Toronto Blue Jays in the always competitive American League East. They have some teams to jump, but it does seem, well, a lot of these articles that were written at the beginning of the month of July, they listed potential, if things don't go right for the Red Sox, especially after the trading of star Rafael Devers, that they could potentially impact the trade deadline in a massive way. And it's starting to look like that's not going to happen. They've already mentioned that a lot would have to go wrong between now and July 31st for them to trade Aroldis Chapman, even, who's on an expiring contract. That's how much faith they have. I think the Red Sox are more likely to add than subtract. And Philly's going to have to deal with a monster coming in this coming week with Boston. I don't know if you guys have looked that far ahead or how you felt about Boston recently, but you can't deny how hot they've been since the calendar turned to July. So, Ben, if you want to hop in since we lost you for a little bit, tell us how you feeling about the Red Sox and this upcoming series.
No, I mean, they are in the first wildcard spot, so there's no reason for them to sell at all. I mean, if you're even in one of those top 3 at all, you should be a buyer. We saw what the Phillies did in 2022, and we saw what the Braves did in 2021. You do not have to be the best team in baseball to win the World Series. And the Red Sox, while not the best team in baseball, are a very good team. Like, I think, if anything, it might be a good thing that they got Devers out of that clubhouse, especially seeing, the performance he's putting up in San Francisco, where A, his bat's not been that hot, B, we know his defense isn't that good, and C, it doesn't look like he's trying that hard. He's jogging to first base. He's not running out ground balls. He might just not be a winning player. Now, you get a lot of those young guys on the Sox right now, like Ceddanne Rafaello, Wilyer Abreu, Garrett Crochet has been dominant for them. They have a really, really solid team. And I was saying back in March that, they would potentially be AL champions. And I think I got a little caught up in myself with the Garrett Crochet trade and thinking that Devers would be a little bit better than he was. But the Red Sox, aside from a few problem positions, second base, first base, catcher, Narvaez, Toro, and Christian Campbell, none of whom have been particularly great. They do have a lot of top prospects waiting in the wings. Christian Campbell, even though he hasn't been that good this year, is probably a very good player. They got Roman Anthony, the number one prospect in baseball now that Jack Caglione has been called up. Also, very good player. The Red Sox should be a good team this year. They should win 91 games, even without Devers. They're going to be a tough team, but the Phillies are also a good team. I don't think it's out of the question for the Phillies to beat them in 2 out of 3 at CBP or even sweep them because they are very, very good at home.
Yeah, it is funny to see them perform this well. I know that he ended up being a headache at times for them, and depending on the information you've read, you may agree with one side more than the other. I think ultimately it was a move that they felt they had to make, and they moved on from Devers despite him being the best hitter on the offense at the time of the trade. It all started with the loss of Tristan Casas. They didn't have a lot of depth at first base. They've basically just mixed and matched. And the question becomes now at the deadline, do they look to fill that hole or do they continue to plug in some of the guys you mentioned, like Toro, like Romy Gonzalez, like David Hamilton, like Marcelo Mayer? Do they try and plug and play these guys over at first base and just hope that they survive? One thing that they definitely need is some starting pitching help. They do have a depth of outfield, so do they potentially trade one of their young outfielders for some starting pitching help? I think it would have to be a controllable piece, someone like a Joe Ryan maybe from Minnesota if he does become available. But despite how hot they are, things don't get easy for Boston right now. They're playing in Chicago before they come to Philly. We know how good the Cubs are at home. Then they have to deal with Philly. I mean, we all know how good the Phillies are at home. And then they go home, which is great, but they welcome the Dodgers to town. And then they do close out with Minnesota, who is hot and cold. So we'll have to see how that plays out. And maybe one of those guys that we think right now is untouchable does become available. They're playing some of the best baseball in the majors, and there's no reason to think that won't continue in the second half. Chris, any thoughts, feelings on the Red Sox and what that means for the deadline, that tough of a schedule?
Yeah, you actually just touched on it. The 3-game series against the Cubs is going to take out at least 2 of their best pitchers. The series finale against the Phillies should probably be Giolito, who's been 6-1, 3.36 ERA this year. They should miss Crochet, or I think it's Crochet, 10-4, 2.23 ERA. So a couple of big ones missed there. The series they get coming after the Red Sox and the Yankees, it's going to be their full complement of pitchers. So that's going to be a series to watch with the starting pitching in the series against the Yankees. But again, as it usually comes down to these things, Philly should be able to take 2 of 3 from just about anybody in the league as far as what the goal should be, because you're gonna win or you're gonna lose baseball games. It's the way the sport works. But if you can take 2 of 3 out of every series, you're gonna put yourself in a good position at the end of the year.
That's something that Rob Thompson has preached time and time again over these years since he was named the manager. It's about winning series. It's about surviving. And I think there's 52 series this year. He said if you win 27 to 30 of those, you're setting yourself up pretty well for the postseason. And we've talked about it in the past with the Phillies starting pitching. You are setting yourself up for 2 out of 3 every single series, even if that 5th spot comes up. That's currently kind of in flux with the rough performances from Mick Abel, the not getting any positive news injury of Aaron Nola, the no longer expecting July-ish for Mandrew Painter. There's a lot of question marks in that 5th spot. Luckily, Taijuan Walker
that 5th spot's almost irrelevant come the playoffs. So while I understand, while I understand you still got 2 months to get there. That's what, 20 more starts, give or take. That's survivable as far as how I'm looking at things for, yes, of course you would want to have that locked down, but many teams in the league don't even have their top 4 starters locked down, and the Phillies do. So it's one of those things that, it's in a perfect world, of course, everything would be situated, slotted perfectly, offense is humming while the pitchers are absolutely feasting on the National League. But then that would make baseball too easy, wouldn't it?
It's funny. There was a big to-do last season about how that fifth spot in the rotation kind of became a black hole towards the end of the season, about whether it was Tyler Phillips or there was some other Tyler and a Kyle Tyler and a somebody else. And there was just all kinds of Eilers out there that didn't necessarily fill
Seth Johnson.
Seth Johnson, his really, really rough start in September. There was a couple names that they've rotated through that just didn't get the job done. And it turned into what felt like dread, despite them winning most of the time when the other four pitchers were going. And I don't know if there's something to that, if there's something where a team feels like they can't get consistency because they know every fifth time out is going to be a loss. It doesn't feel that way yet because Taiwan's been able to do whatever the team has asked from him. He's looked really strong in these spot starts that where they pulled him out of that bullpen role and put him in these spot starts. He's looked really good. Obviously, the whole dynamic of the pitching staff changes if Aaron Nola comes back healthy, whether they make moves or not. And they're all indications point to that they are going to make some, or at least attempt to make some significant moves at the back end of the bullpen. But Aaron Nola is the difference maker. If he can come back and look anywhere close to even his normal down years where he's like a 3.80 ERA or a 4 ERA, that's much better than the 6 that he was giving you with only one victory early in the season. So, yeah, I'm not too concerned about it, but I think that I'd be curious, and maybe that's something we can work on when we're down there this week, Chris, is talk to these guys about what does that mean if for whatever reason Taiwan can't go regularly? What does that start to mean for you guys? You know, there was a lot to do about it last year. Or even maybe I'll talk to some of the other reporters, get how those guys were feeling last year about it before we talk to the players about it. But it's something to think on because something that feels like we talked about how strong the starting pitching was, and now they're in a position where we thought they had 7 guys and they seemingly have 4. So we'll see what happens with injuries. We'll see what happens with Andrew Painter. I think he'll be a key cog, at least storyline wise in the second half. Whether it's I don't think he'll be traded, but whether it's they're deciding to delay him and you have to keep rolling with the punches in the 5-hole, or they decide that it's necessary to bring him up now. So we'll have to see how that goes. Yeah, not a whole lot else to add. I think they're setting themselves up for success every time they enter a 3-game series, especially if they don't have to go with that option. Unfortunately, they'll have to go to a bullpen game with the series against the Red Sox, but that doesn't mean doom and gloom. Some other key, I don't want to go series by series, but was there anything else that you guys or stood out for you guys as far as challenging stretches or really easy stretches where they could potentially rebound? Anything you guys wanted to focus on? I do have a couple that I have earmarked, but want to give you guys a chance to jump in with what you're thinking might be strong or rough stretches to pay attention to in the second half.
End of August, there's a 7-game stretch, 3 at New York and then 4 at home against Atlanta. That's going to be a pretty key series. That's just going to be a rough week. You travel to Milwaukee, and then you come back home for another 7 against the NL East, 3 in Miami, which there's going to be nobody in the ballpark. So those are always really tough games to play. And then 4 at home against the Mets, September 8th through the 11th. So there's a very key stretch starting August 25th and running through September 11th or so. Features 7 games against the Mets, 7 against Atlanta, 4 against Atlanta. That could go a very long way in how that NL East settles at the end of the year.
And as well, I think the stretch that the Phillies are about to enter is a bit shorter, but after the Angels here, the Phillies go Boston, New York, White Sox, Detroit. So that's 3 of 4 really, really tough teams coming up after the Angels. And, you sweep Chicago or even just take 2 of 3, and then you take 2 of 3 from one of those other 2. And you feel fine, I think, coming out of that at 500, especially with, those 3 games away to Chicago. I think you take 2 of 3 on the road every time. But nevertheless, you want to come out of the All-Star break good. You want to set up that deadline for success where you look like you're rolling into it instead of stumbling into it. It's a lot easier to make moves for a team that is hot than one that's cold. And the Phillies have to enter August on the right foot with their deadline acquisitions, get them, acclimated to a clubhouse that is well oiled instead of has potentially some friction. And I think, as long as, they keep their heads above water, keep above 500 through that mini tough stretch, I'm pretty dang confident.
Yeah, it's a really, really tough stretch. Obviously, I mean, we know how good the Yankees are. They're going to be making some additions as well, probably taking some big swings of their own. Yeah, that's a tough one. I think you nailed it. The stretch of Atlanta and New York back to back, Chris, is a really difficult one to get through. Detroit's really good. That game on Sunday night, August 3rd, it was scheduled for Sunday day, got flexed to the ESPN game of the week. So that'll be a 7-10 start in against Detroit. Baltimore, Texas, Cincinnati, maybe, and Washington. That might be a little bit of a relaxing stretch for them. Washington, obviously, they still play them well, division game and all. They do have Seattle. They do have those before Washington, and then they have those 7. Milwaukee, they don't seem to always play Milwaukee well. The one thing I'll say is we talk about a little bit of an ease with Miami, but it's not really easy for the Phillies for whatever reason to play Miami. Yeah, they're 5-2 against them this season, but only 7-6 against them last year. 6-7 versus them in the regular season 2 seasons ago. I looked up something. I think since the start of the Bryce Harper era until this last series, the Phillies were under 500 against Miami, and Miami they had the 2020 season, they made the playoffs, and they had the one playoff run 2 years ago where we took them out in 2 games. They haven't been a great team over that stretch, and they seem to just play Philadelphia well for whatever reason. And I don't care. It has nothing to do with Sandy having a down year because they always seem to hit Sandy well, which is really strange. Mm-hmm. When he was dominating the entire league, they seem to handle him pretty well. So I wouldn't say that any stretch that includes Miami is necessarily an easy one. I don't care how good the Phillies are playing or how bad Miami's playing, and Miami's been playing a little bit better as of late. So I wouldn't look past them at any point. Maybe I'm accidentally getting into, we talked about why the Phillies are going to be hot in the second half. I'm almost getting into a conversation about it might not be as easy as they think. But
when was the last time Bryce Harper played in front of 20 people? It's been 30
grade
years.
School?
High school? Yeah.
Yeah. So, I mean, you go down and you play in Miami, and I think the Mariachi Band is probably the biggest quartet that's there. So it's just a very
great sideline reporter for
a very, very weird place to play Major League Baseball. And,
it is a weird place to play.
It's a bit of a house of horrors for the Phillies just because it's a weird place to play baseball.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah. And the Marlins have been, like you said, Kyle, a bit of a bugaboo for the team for the entire rebuild years. And even into the current Phils. 2022 was the only year that they really took care of business against the Marlins, 12-7. And this year they've done pretty solid. Did they sweep them in April, or is it a 2-3 series? They've played one 4-game series and one 3-game.
Yeah, 2-1 against them in April, and then 3-1 against them down in Miami in June.
Right. So they keep that up, and I think it's maybe time that we can quash the whole Miami thing. I know they weren't necessarily great against them in 23 or 24, but since that playoff run started in 22, they're now, 3 games, 5 games, 8 games above 500 since the 22 season against the Marlins. So it's a different team. It's a different vibe. You have Kyle Schwarber in the clubhouse who settles things down a little bit more than Didi Gregorius or Odubel Herrera or any of those, god-awful 2020 and 2021 teams. I think the Phillies are a little bit more confident going into that House of Horrors.
I can't believe that's the second Odubel Herrera reference of the show. My boy Evan will be really excited. I couldn't stand it. Even when he was leading the league in doubles, I still couldn't stand the guy.
Even when he didn't have the domestic abuse allegations.
Yeah. Let's not get into that one today, at least. That's an off the show kind of conversation, Ben.
Yeah.
But worth a note. We don't like Odubel here. No, regardless, we talked about how easy the schedule, or how light compared to some of their National League East compatriots are for the Phillies the rest of the way. We talked about how strong opponents the Mets have the rest of the way. I think these rosters are going to look a little bit different in a couple weeks. Obviously, the key matchups, I think the last time they play each other is early in September, so that'll obviously be a key series, 8th through the 11th. That's the last time that they play the Mets or the Braves. Hopefully the pesky Braves don't stick around and make some of those 2019 moves like they did, reworking their entire outfield to make a run. However, they're not going to get there just based on record alone, right? Some of these players need to step up. While it's looked rough at times, while there are flaws, there's flaws on every team. I'm sure that the Dodgers and their fans are jealous of the health that the Phillies have seen in their starting rotation. It doesn't matter how much money you spend if guys can't stay on the field or can't perform up to expectations. That's you're going to be looking at the deadline like, man, we really need to do something. Yes, Philadelphia has its holes. We know that they need a shutdown arm at the end of the bullpen. They could probably use another bat. We'll see how that turns out in the next couple of weeks. But what I wanted to get into with you guys is who are the players that need to have the biggest impact in the second half? Who needs to help this team? Who needs to either step their game up or continue what they're doing in the second half? I'm going to go first because I think the person I'm going to mention is pretty obvious. I mentioned it when I was on with Sean Brace earlier this week. I think when I mentioned it pre-show, when we were working on the show, both of you guys said, yeah, duh. But it almost has to be said. Bryce Harper needs to be Bryce Harper. He needs to be healthy. He needs to be in the lineup almost every single day. They need to manage that wrist as best they can because he is the guy who lives for the moment. There's a big thing where this team seems to be able to get on base. They all adjusted their approach in the offseason, which is wonderful for veterans to do that for the greater good. It doesn't always happen that way. They've gotten on base more. They're hitting more singles. Some guys who weren't hitting early have started to come around. Some other guys have cooled off. Of course, that's just the ebbs and flow of the season. But Bryce Harper's been out of this lineup for a long time, and you have felt like there is a missing piece. And obviously, when the piece is as big as Bryce Harper, we understand, obviously, there's a missing piece. But with the rest of the superstars in this lineup, the record has been pretty good despite the fact that he hasn't been in the lineup. The thing that it felt like they were missing overall to me was somebody who delivers the dagger, somebody who steps up in the biggest moment. And that is what Bryce Harper has built his name on. He's built his legacy on that. Not that we're going to get into first take legacy talk here, but the guy, his nickname is the Showman. He's one of the faces of baseball for a reason. We all know what this guy, he blows himself away sometimes. Did I just do that after getting in the dugout after hitting that big home run against the Padres a few years ago in the playoffs? We heard what he said. He had that huge game against San Francisco before the break. 4 for 6 outing. He hit 1 homer with 3 doubles. It probably would have been 3 homers in another ballpark at Citizens Bank Park, especially. The guy, he was hitting a lot of balls the other way. When he's locked in, that's how the Phillies go. And it doesn't matter what kind of performance you get pitching-wise if Bryce Harper's hot. He needs to be hot. He needs to be the guy who delivers in the big moments. He needs to be the guy showing the rest of the lineup what it means to step up in the biggest moments. Without it, you felt like even with the blowouts that they've had, even with the victories that they've had, sitting in first place here today, it still feels like those big moments have been missing from this lineup, and he's the guy to deliver them. They need Harper to be Harper the rest of the way.
I think you need to pump the brakes a little bit personally because he's hurt. That's
the brakes.
What pumps the brakes a little. I mean, look, at this rate, if Bryce Harper finishes the season with 20 home runs, 70 RBIs, because right now he's at 10 and 35, that's a successful season for Bryce Harper given what he's dealing with, as far as I'm concerned. Is it what we expect out of Bryce Harper? No, it's not. But I think he's doing what he can. And on top of that, forcing himself essentially back into the lineup when realistically he probably needs another 2-3 weeks. But the team's not able to really handle that. Slash, I think he's also able to understand the simple fact that, like, look, I can sit on the sideline and feel 5% better, or I can play, give my team a chance to win. And, you know what, I'll just, grit my teeth and fight through the pain. So, I think a lot of the rest of the team needs to step up. Nick Castellanos has done good. 273 is a solid average. Where's his power this year? 12 home runs. You need more than that from Nick Castellanos. You need that 25, 30 home run power. That's what we're used to seeing out of Castellanos. Alec Bohm, 8 home runs this year. That's got to be closer to 15 to 20. as far as I'm concerned.
Well, Chris, to that point, I think you heard it a lot in spring training that the Phillies were going to try to chase less. And I think the byproduct of A, everyone asking them to chase less, and B, them actually doing it is that you lose a lot of that power. And B, on to Bryce Harper. He never seems to perform well coming out of injuries. So I'm really not concerned at, his below average for Bryce Harper performance since he's come back, because I know that, after a month of this, he's going to start to perform better. And I think we should be able to ask for more than 20 home runs from Bryce Harper. I'm not even going to acknowledge the RBI comment. I feel like we're in 2025. We don't need to acknowledge that sort of stuff anymore. But nevertheless, I think that, we should be asking for a 900 OPS come the end of the season from Bryce Harper. We should be asking for good rate stats and for him to keep performing like Bryce Harper. I'm not going to ask for him to be MVP Bryce Harper, but I am going to ask for him to continue that Hall of Fame pace, not because I think it's what, Phillies fans deserve, but because I think that it's what he's capable of. And I think if you asked Bryce, he would say that it is what he is capable of at a bare minimum as well.
Yes, 100% Bryce Harper, but what's a 60% Bryce Harper capable of?
I don't think he's 60%.
I think he's a lot better.
I'm throwing a number out there, but I mean, okay, even 75.
I think 900 OPS, same as things you got last year. Every year for the last 3-4 years, he gets injured for a month. It happens. He plays a little bit too hard for his own body, and you always see it. He comes back. He's slow for a month, but outside of that month where he comes back, he's generally hitting pretty well, and by the end of the season, that should get you out to a 900 OPS and 285 batting average.
He's 825 OPS there, so he has a shot at it. I don't know. For myself, I temper expectations because I know the risk situation, and it's a big part of a baseball player's anatomy. That's not the word I'm looking for, but you're using your hands consistently in the game of baseball. So I look at that as something that it might be a little harder to overcome than if he was dealing with a knee injury or something of that nature, whereas he's constantly using the wrist in the batting aspect.
Well, I think at this point for him, it's sort of a chronic injury. I think that this is among his back problems. It's something that probably just won't go away for the rest of his career, and he's got to learn how to play through that. And the thing is, knowing Bryce Harper, I believe that he will learn how to play through it. And I don't think we're going to see 2021 Bryce Harper again. I don't think we're going to see 2015 Bryce Harper again. But I think it is fair to expect of him, and knowing what a talent it is, what he is, what a generational phenom he is, that he should be able to not necessarily play through that as in play through the injury, but play through that as in return to some sense of normalcy, some sense of all-star, of Hall of Fame caliber through minor nagging injuries.
Yeah, I think that when he came back initially, he said, it's something that we're going to have to manage. And I think that's going to be the key. He needs to be willing to listen to his own body and not be stubborn. I think he needs to, nice comment in here from TR. Harper has a 900 OPS so far in July, so seems right on target with Ben's expectations. I agree. It's when he feels good, he should be hitting like this. And when he feels bad, he should take a day or two. They can survive without him, but if he doesn't listen to his own body, or the club doesn't pay attention to the maybe nonverbal signals and decide to sit him out on occasion, you run the risk that he is going to aggravate it to a point where he does have to sit out an extended period of time. And if they manage it properly and can keep him as healthy as possible throughout the regular season, then you let him go nuts in the postseason when you have some extra rest days. I don't think it's unreasonable to expect him to, when in the lineup, perform like he has. He's still in his prime years. He's still one of the greatest players to ever step on the diamond, to ever don a Phillies uniform. And I expect for the rest of this season and the next couple years to see close to that level of performance as long as they manage it. That's a big part. I think when he was younger, he probably would have been like, no, I'm playing through this every single day, and just made excuses along the way. He mentioned when he came back that he would need to manage it. And I think that as long as they do that effectively, you should expect big things and Harper to be able to carry this team the rest of the way. But we spent a lot of time on my guy, and I didn't let either of you jump in. So, Ben, I'm going to toss to you. Who's the person that you think really needs to step up, or who's the guy who's the key to the Phillies' success in the second half?
So I'm going to give you I'm going to bounce that back with a trivia question here. And it's maybe a correlation causation thing. It's maybe me reading a little bit too far into the numbers, but I will say this player has the biggest difference in batting average and OPS as well between Phillies wins and Phillies losses. Their batting average in Phillies wins is 315. Their batting average in Phillies losses is 122. And I'm wondering, what player do you guys think this is?
Chris, who you got? I have somebody in my head.
I'm going to go with Max Kepler.
My guess is JT Realmuto.
Both of you guys are wrong. It is Bryson Stott.
Bryson Stott.
As well. 844 OPS in wins, 345 OPS in losses. He might be this year for the Phillies the straw that stirs the drink. And I'm not asking of him to maintain an 844 OPS all year long. I think that is unrealistic. He doesn't swing hard enough to do that. He doesn't make enough quality contact. But what I am asking of him is to maintain, say, an OPS in the 690 to 730 range and just be a second baseman who can provide some production other than a pop-up to the left side of the infield for the next 2.5 months. I need him to just go back to fouling pitches off and putting the ball in play on a line or on the ground. I need the flyouts to stop because Bryson Stott is a really, really valuable player. He's one of the best base runners in baseball, and he's one of the best defenders in baseball. And from everything I've heard, he's a great clubhouse presence too. So it automatically raises his floor from whatever his OPS right now, I believe is like 640 OPS second baseman can be. He's a better player than that. And he could be a great player if only he could just be a mediocre to below average hitter. But the Phillies aren't getting that. And when they do get that, they are winning. So I'd like to see Stott turn things up a little bit in the second half.
That was exactly the person I had circled too, was Bryson Stott.
Oh, man, okay.
Sorry, Chris, I jumped you there.
No. I mean, look, you hit everything on the head. You know, he's hitting 234. I love the fact that you mentioned his base running. He's second on the team in stolen bases with 14, behind Trey Turner, who's got 24, who was told, "Hey, quit the home runs, start getting on base, and start using your legs, because that's your five. That's one of your 5 tools." So. You know, I was glad to see Trey do that. He's hitting 289, 24 swipes. So, you know, I would like to see Bryson Stott get on base, you know, get that average up to 250, 275. And I think it goes a long way. While I don't have the stats in front of me, I felt like he should have won a Gold Glove last year. By the end of his career, he should win one, if not multiple, Gold Gloves at second base. So if he's able to you know, get consistency with the stick, you know, then you're setting yourself up for what you thought Bryson Stott was going to be, and easily he's one of my favorite players on this team because he does play hard all of the time. But yeah, it's incredibly frustrating in a big spot to get that infield pop up or to get that ground ball right to second base. You're like, well, there goes that opportunity. It's happened a bunch this year.
Yeah, and he did have that big home run against, I don't think it was the Blue Jays. It was the Reds.
In Wheeler's
Sunday.
dominant
Yes,
outing.
exactly. And, you know, he still does have a moment in him. He's not someone you come up to the plate and it's like Johan Rojas and you're praying for him to bunt. I believe that there still is a good hitter somewhere in Bryson Stott. And maybe he needs the right hitting coach to figure it out. Maybe it's a mental block. I don't know. Because he did it for a full season in 2023, and he had a pretty solid postseason that year too. I would like to see a lot more out of him because I'm seeing a lot of people as well saying the Phillies need to non-tender him after this year, which is crazy to me. Why would you do that for a guy who plays good defense and is as good a base runner? This is his floor. He is playing at his floor, and he's still a positive player overall. He's not quite a zero because of that defensive value.
Yeah, one thing that I was going to bring up, and here we have a commenter in the chat. Stott hasn't really been an everyday player this year. They used Edmundo Sosa against left-handers a lot, and despite Rob Thompson's every effort to convince himself and others that he is that Stott can hit lefties, we know that he had almost even splits against lefties in that 2023 season. But his effort against left-handers has really diminished the last 2 years. At what point do you say maybe we're dealing with a platoon here at second base with Edmundo Sosa and Bryson Stott? And while I agree with your analysis, Ben, that it is if he does well, whether it's part-time or full-time, that will help a ton, right? Obviously, if Stott can go from seeing a lot of pitches and popping up to seeing a lot of pitches and driving the ball, that's a huge difference for this lineup. We saw what it looked like in 2023 when he was doing exactly that. But something to consider, Bryson Stott's OPS against righties, the side he's been better against, not by much, but better against. He has a 356 slug and a 659 OPS. What is it? 250 at bats. Sosa, a lot less at bats, was 64 at bats against lefties and 934 OPS. Like, obviously you don't expect him to sustain that over an extended period of time, but also pretty good legs, also can swipe a bag, also incredible glove in the infield. You don't lose much by going to almost a full platoon, and I know the Phillies don't like to do that, but you're at a point where you've already started to do that a little bit, and Edmundo Sosa pays it off every single time he's in the lineup, seemingly so. I agree with you that this is not to disagree with your point. If Stott goes, the offense picks up significantly. He's a guy who often, because he hits after the top of the lineup, finds himself in a position with runners on base with a chance to do some damage. They tried him at leadoff. It didn't work, but maybe that's not his role. I mean, in 23, they had him batting 5th or 6th at times. Mm-hmm. So he clearly has that in him. And for him to step up big time would be huge for this club. If they happen to go platoon route, I think they're in pretty good hands regardless. So it's not to discount what you're saying. I just think that they do have an option if they're willing to just really lean into that.
No, I agree.
You don't lose much by taking Stott out for Sosa.
I think platoon is absolutely the right option to go, and it's not because Bryson Stott is bad against lefties, because he actually does have a higher career batting average against lefties than he does against righties. He has a significantly higher career OBP against lefties than he does against righties, but it's more about Sosa being, if not as good a defender, close to as good a defender, and being significantly better against lefties. I think that Stott is probably the better player, has the higher ceiling overall than Sosa. It's just that he hasn't unlocked it yet. And I think one of these years, the Phillies have Stott for another 2.5, I believe. Perhaps it's 3.5. He's going to unlock that 1 year, and hopefully the Phillies can, lock him up for a long-term deal before then.
I remember I had a friend of mine who, after that 2023 season, he said that the Phillies need to do what the Braves did with all their young stars and sign this guy to a long-term contract right now. I think they are probably glad that they waited a little bit, but if he can show that he can rebound a little bit.
No. After Mickey Moniak,
Scott Kingery.
Kingery, Moniak. They tried that and failed twice.
Yeah, we don't want that. But
they never gave Moniak a deal.
They didn't. I thought they
no. It was just. Kingery.
I thought they bought out arbitration. I knew Kingery. They gave him a full extension. For some reason, I thought they did Moniak just through some arbitration years. But Ben, you're probably right. Let's look. TR with a comment. Unless you plan to play Sosa in left field to platoon against Kepler, Stott is going to be a platoon player. So kind of echoing what we've said a little bit. Do they put Kemp out in left field? They tried Sosa and for whatever reason didn't continue. I don't know if it was just maybe he lacked the confidence after those 2 weird errors, despite him robbing a home run when he tried it out there. Mental errors, not actual errors on the in the E column per se, but the mental error with he and Rojas letting the ball fall in. I think there was another play out and left.
He might have just not been comfortable out there. More comfortable in the infield.
Yeah.
Could be that. And hey, let's keep guys comfortable. Kepler has a good glove out there. Similar numbers to what he did last year.
So well that he's earned that playing time as well. That's something that I feel is important to be stated. Stott plays every day unless Sosa's tearing the ball off, and right now he has been this season. So, he's made a huge pitch for himself to get some playing time, and he's taking advantage of it, which is what you got to do.
And Rob Thompson's repeatedly said that it's sometimes you have to find it's when you have a lot of good players or guys with good potential, it's tough to find a spot for all of them. So when you have guys who are red hot like Sosa, if it comes at the expense of another guy like Stott, who might be struggling at the time, you live with it. There's going to be some question marks. Obviously, we talked about, we hinted at it a moment ago, but if it's Sosa or Kemp out in left field, Kepler may not be long for the Phillies. We'll have to see. He got sat against the right-hander for the first time all season to close out the first half. So some interesting
you
things
can't be
to watch.
A 236 hitter hitting 210 and complaining about your playing time. I'm sorry.
He added some clarification, kind of just saying like it just wasn't what he expected, but it's on him to make the adjustment. So whether that's saving grace, it's still he's still right. That still has to be your mindset as a major leaguer.
I mean,
regardless of whether he's actually doing it or just saying the right things is another.
Yeah.
I can't determine that.
I get wanting to sign a contract, understanding it's like, okay, cool, I'm gonna come. Maybe you looked at Castellanos, like, yeah, you played 162. Maybe I'll get a 130 game.
It's a bad look.
If you're hitting 300, fine, you can make that statement. You're hitting 210, and you're like, I need to be playing more. That to me is just doesn't add up.
And for what it's worth, I defended him at least a little bit in an article around the time when it happened, because what I must imagine he was told in spring training was that he was the everyday player, and I imagine as well the language barrier. Like, we forget that Kepler. English is not his first language. You can, again, like I am doing, make all the excuses for him. Nevertheless, it does not look great. I haven't heard that much out of the clubhouse about Kepler being really a positive force, but I haven't heard, other than this one quote, him being a negative force either. I don't know how he's perceived. I don't know what the other players think of that, but I have to imagine someone spoke to him about it after he said that.
The one thing, Ben, to update, I know I'm taking a little bit of a backtrack here, but the Angels did finally announce their three starters for this series. I know when you did that preview, they hadn't announced anybody. We thought that Jose Siriano, there were some rumors out there, might be going in game 1. He won't be going until game 3. So it'll be Soriano against Ranger on Sunday. Tonight, they're going bullpen game. Ryan, I'm going to butcher this name, Ryan Zephyrdjian, maybe?
I have no idea.
He needs to be a Philly at the trade deadline. We'll change his name. There's Zephyrdjian.
Yeah, Zephyrdjian done.
He'll have the highest selling jersey at the bank.
That'd be so easy.
Why would they go a bullpen game out? I'm sorry to interrupt, Cal. Why would they go a bullpen game out of the All-Star break? I'm sure there's a reason for it, but it is really weird.
Yeah, I don't know what they had as far as maybe whoever they had planned wasn't available, came in today sore. I'm not really sure. It's some crazier things have happened. I'm assuming, unless this guy was a big time starter in the minors, but he's made, 30 appearances this year where is it? Here we go. 40 appearances this year, no starts. So it's something that
he's a one.
Let's see. Corey jumping in the comments. Yankees are doing it as well. Freed had a possible blister when he showed up. Yeah. So could be something where whoever the original planned starter was dealing with something when he came in. I know it's not the exact same scenario, but my number one question a couple weeks ago when they went to Jordan Romano instead of Orion Kirkring was, what the heck? You took out Kirkring the night before so he would be available today. What happened? Well, then they revealed after the game that he came in a little sore, so they didn't want to use him at all. Just maybe something that's not public knowledge yet will be there. Oh, look at you, Corey, the broadcaster extraordinaire, confirming the pronunciation. Yeah, buddy. Let's go. Thanks, Corey. Appreciate it.
So the jersey works perfectly. I mean, it's right there.
There it is. Guys, we've talked about who we think is going to potentially step up big time. We do have a first half to talk about, and we kind of just talked about the guy that I wanted to do a dive into in Bryson Stott. It's been an underperforming first half for Bryson Stott to this point. I think we know what he does with the glove. When he gets on, he can wreak havoc. He's incredible defensively, but I think a lot of people expected a rebound year. And unfortunately, that 2023 is looking more and more like an outlier. We talked about who we think is the guy who needs to step up and or is the guy to potentially carry the team. in the second half. Who is somebody that you're worried about in the second half? Chris, Ben, whoever wants to jump on it first. We don't have to be overly critical. Just if there's somebody you think like, man, this could be a pain point the rest of the season.
So if I wanted to be annoying, I'd just say my answer is also Bryson Stott. I'm not going to do that. Oddly enough, I'm going to say Ranger Suarez here because he has, for his career, almost always started off a season very well. Now, I think we can still say it's early in the season for him because he did miss that first month and a half. He has made 13 starts. His ERA is still 2.15. He has been excellent this year. Same sort of thing happened last year where he was an all-star, had a great start to the year, finished poorly. In 2021, his best season, he also missed like the first month and a half of the season and then was a reliever for much of the season after that, only threw 106 innings to a 1.36 ERA. Whenever he has had to eclipse that, 120, 130 inning limit, he starts to tumble a little bit. Now, the other thing about that is he, for his entire career, has been one of the best postseason pitchers of all time. 1.43 career ERA in 37 postseason innings. It's electric. I do worry, though, come late August, come September, are we still going to be seeing the best version of Ranger Suarez? And it's also complicated by that wrinkle of this being a contract year for him. I don't know how that affects things. It might make him better, might make him worse, might not affect him at all. But it's something to monitor going into the second half.
Chris, anybody in particular, a position, a player that's of concern? I mean, I think the easy answer is the bullpen, and if they don't get somebody significant, those guys could be overlooked or overused. But anybody who stands out as a potential worrisome spot for the Phillies?
Yeah, so I've said his name already, Max Kepler. I'm not gonna to rain on that anymore. I was actually going to change my answer to the center field unit of Marsh and Rojas, but in all honesty, Marsh hitting 260, Rojas is hitting 230. That's serviceable.
I mean,
it's not. Look, it's not great. Yes, you want more out of that, especially with the ground balls and the double plays and whatnot. But if that's your 9-hole. That's still way better than a lot of teams in Major League Baseball. So, yes, I would like more out of that situation, especially when you look at the WAR. Marsh is a minus 0.1% in WAR. Rojas is a 0.3. So, I mean, you're getting around MLB average production out of those players.
Not even. WAR is replacement level, so it's actually below MLB average production.
Okay, so I mean, even more than I guess in that circumstance, you could use a little more from those guys, but I don't know how much more you can expect.
Mm-hmm. And I would also just say, in reference to the Rojas thing, I'm totally fine with the way Marsh is playing right now. Since coming back from injury in that pretty awful April, I think he's been very good. The 230 average from Rojas is not enough for me, not because I really care about his average, but because his OEP is below 300 and his slugging is also almost below 300. He's playing great defense, but I need him to be getting on base at a 310, 320 clip for that platoon, I guess you could say, to work. Because as it's currently constructed, Rojas, it's not working, and Rojas is not a major league player.
He's been one of my bigger disappointments, unfortunately, because his defense is so good. That I've been one of the bigger proponents of just trying to find a way in the lineup. But yeah, as Ben mentioned, you got to pick those numbers up to make sure you're getting a consistent start.
Mm-hmm. To me, Chris, I'm going to go with the guy that you passed on. I'm going to go Max Kepler. I'm going to go with the left field situation. It felt like they needed to do more. It felt like a weird signing in the offseason at the time. Max is a great guy. Met him, nice guy, but the performance is what it is. If you thought he had a bad year last season, it's basically the same year, just with a higher walk percentage and a worse BABIP. Like it's basically the exact same season that he's having last year. No increase to his power, no increase to his the walk rate. That's the only thing that really jumped up for him, which is great. But if he's still not producing when he does put the ball in play, it's a little bit of a tough spot. The thing is that we've talked about this in past trade deadline episodes. There's no obvious mega corner outfielder who's available, at least at the moment. Anybody who would be available is likely because they're having a down year. Could Adolis Garcia add something? Sure, but he's having the worst year of his career offensively since his rookie year. The Luis Robert, you could probably get him for dirt cheap, but he's hitting under 200. Yeah, okay, whatever. Plus glove in center field, and you could slide Marsh over to left. But it really is
getting him out of Chicago is important. Getting him away from that team, from that environment.
Maybe, but like stuck with like the loser mentality. I hate to be typical talk show guy, but like that's a concern for me. Is like, is he so used to losing and kind of just taking it easy and not working that hard? I don't want to say not working. I don't know what his work ethic is like, but like it doesn't seem like he's putting in the same level of effort. If you see any highlights, he's taking plays off. He's taking days off. And yeah, it's not easy to stay focused every single day when you're playing for one of the worst teams in the majors.
If I've lost 500 games in the last 5 years, I probably wouldn't be working so hard either.
Maybe it does work, and you could probably get him for dirt cheap. And it's club options after this season, so it wouldn't cost you the end of the world. But I think that there's a chance that they don't necessarily get the bat that they potentially need. I've heard people talk about Ramon Laureano. Yeah, he's a right-hander who could partner well with a Marsh or Kepler out there, but he has reverse splits this year. He's not really hitting left-handed pitching, and that's what they need. They need somebody who can hit left-handed pitching. We talked about Cedric Mullins. If he is available, he's basically the same guy that they already have out there in Marsh, and he can go through hot streaks. He can hit a little bit more with a little bit more pop, which is great, but again, not necessarily figuring out and addressing the need that you have out there. So my concern is that Otto Kemp is fine, but he's not a strict platoon everyday left fielder. Even Kepler's proven that he's not an everyday left fielder anymore. It doesn't seem like they're willing to run that every single day. You'll see Brandon Marsh and Johan Rojas out there in left and center respectively. So there seems to be this hole out in left field. And despite how hot Castellanos has been with extra base hits since the start of June, overall their OPS is really weak. It's one of the weakest that the outfield has been in this era of Philadelphia Phillies baseball. So it is a little concerning to me that there's nobody really necessarily, unless somebody comes in. We see a lot of guys get energized and juiced by a big trade and a big move to a big time city and a playoff contender. To me, I'm concerned that left field goes unaddressed and you're dealing with a guy who's hitting 210 with a 300 on base for the rest of the season in the middle of your lineup. Ben, you want to jump in?
I did. I have a little bit of an under the radar move that I think is up Dombrowski's alley and could be very helpful. I think this move starts with moving away from Justin Crawford, trading him for a reliever like David Bednar. Not sure it'll work for John Duran. Moving Crawford away for some reliever and let some other team take on that ground ball rate. Then, as we already mentioned, the Red Sox are in pretty dire need of starting pitching. You don't, however, trade for any of their current outfielders, Cedon Rafaela, Wilyer Abreu, or Jarren Duran. You trade for their number one outfield prospect, not named Roman Anthony. You trade for Joe Nixon Garcia, who currently has a 905 OPS at center field for AAA Worcester. He's got, pretty solid power. It seems like he's a pretty solid defender. He's slashing 292, 373, 532 in 40 games since being promoted from Portland. And I think that this guy could be the answer at center field, especially with Mick Abel not really fitting into the picture for Philadelphia. He's not ranked. He's not a top 100 prospect. I think you could maybe get a little bit extra because of that, because I think Mick Abel, though also unranked, has proven that he can do it at the big league level. Maybe you get a reliever, another prospect in there. I'm not entirely sure. But while also repairing the farm system, you were preparing for A, the end of 2025, and B, the beginning of 2026.
Huh. A little outside the box thinking there. I like it, Ben. I like that approach.
And it also mirrors what the Phillies did for Brandon Marsh in 2022, moving Logan O'Hoppe for their big, bushy-bearded center fielder that they have now. I'm jealous, Kyle. I'll say that.
This is the shortest. Well, I guess a couple weeks ago it was shorter, obviously, but yeah, it used to be like down to my middle of my chest, Ben. So you missed out on the glorious era. Me and Marsh didn't get too close to each other with like Velcro,
Yeah, as someone who cannot grow a beard, or at least not a good one, give it 15 years.
You'll get there. You'll get there.
I feel your pain.
Yeah, but guys, I don't know if you have anywhere else you want to go. I think that the Phillies, with the success with the health of Bryce Harper, with the current record of their opponents, I think one thing to look out for too, you mentioned, Chris, that we need a little bit more from Nick Castellanos. Did you know that traditionally the best month of his career every season is the month of August? So could be a real hot stretch for the Phillies against some lesser than opponents.
You know why that
we'll have
is?
to see what they add at the trade deadline. Why is that?
Liam Castellanos is out of school.
There it is. Yeah, buddy.
Chris with the hard hitting report.
Dad power.
Big J
That dad energy, baby. Let's go. I get it, man. First off, as a dad, their relationship, so friggin' adorable. Love it so much. Love seeing great dads be great dads out there in public. Love it.
I love how
love it. Gotta support the dads.
I love how awesome the Phillies are about it. You know, you're standing down there, and you just I've literally watched Liam go through the same exact sports training program his dad's doing to get ready for a game.
A lot of times he'll be out there later
different.
than Nick. Nick's in the clubhouse. Yeah. He's still out there working with other guys.
And I give him all the credit in the world. I'm excited to look a decade down the line and hopefully see Liam Castellanos getting drafted somewhere, because the kid's putting in the work. All credit to him.
Yeah, man, that'd be pretty cool, especially if he's in Philly. We'll see. Philly loves him. The mayor of Citizens Bank Park. Yeah, we'll have to see how that goes
for that one. Well, gonna have to fight the
I think the Fanatic would hand it over with pleasure. But yeah, you know, we know that the Phillies are going to be in the bullpen market. We know that they're potentially, if they have the opportunity to add a bat, they may do so. But it seems like their focus is going to be high leverage guys at the end of the bullpen. The offense with a healthy Harper, if Schwarber can recover a little bit, if Nick Castellanos has a typical August for himself, they should be poised to have a strong second half, and you'll see a new few faces. Will they be here by next week's Alley Talk, Chris? I don't know. I think it's going to go down to the wire. We may see some early moves. Whether they come to Philadelphia or not is still to be seen. However, guys, I think what we need to do is give the people some time to digest this wonderful episode of Alley Talk before the Phillies return to action tonight down at Citizens Bank Park. Ben, what do you got for us on the way out, man?
Take 2 or 3 from the Angels. That's all I'm going to say. Yeah, you need to come out of the All-Star break strong. You need to show Dombrowski that this is a team worth buying into, and you need to, beat the Angels just in case something goes wrong against the Red Sox, against the Yankees, against the Tigers. You already have a little bit of ballast in your boat.
I like it, Chris. Final message, final words before we do our plugs.
Just breathe. This is when baseball
just breathe,
gets
baby.
Fun.
Lot of baseball left. Just breathe. 2.5 months.
It's not Eagle season. Every loss is not dire. It's all right. The Phillies will be.
It's like every 9 or 10 games is equivalent to one. Every 9 games is one Eagles game.
Yeah, it's going to be an exciting race to the finish. We're going to slowly start to ramp up to one of the best times of the year, and that's the start of the NHL season. No.
Oh yeah, get out of here, Chris.
That's Red October. Red October is one of the best times of the year. Can't wait to be excited. I'm so excited to be involved with it this year with the PSN crew, and excited to watch Red October take over Philadelphia as it does every year. So this is when I really start to get excited about the baseball season. Once you get past the All-Star game, really August, once you get past the trade deadline and things settle in. But it's a really fun time of baseball in the summer.
Yeah, man. Love the long summers for baseball. Gotta love after the deadline, new faces everywhere, excitement in some cities that maybe needed a little bit something else to hang on to. Philly just adds to the excitement after the deadline every year. For those of you out there watching Alley Talk, just thank you. Thank you every week. Thank you, guys. We really appreciate the love. Make sure that you follow at Philadelphia SN on X all season long. Not only us three, but we have a crack staff of writers who give you all your Phillies needs all season long. Make sure on Blue Sky it's at Philly Sports Net. On YouTube, Philly Sports Network. That's where you can find this. Make sure every single week you are tuned in. Set the reminder for the network. We have great Flipping the Birds. We have a few Sixers and Flyers casts live as well throughout the week. And then every Friday here at 2 p.m., unless a schedule change happens last minute like it did a couple weeks ago, you can find Alley Talk. Myself, and then I'll be joined by, sometimes it's Chris, sometimes it's Ben, sometimes it's both. Sometimes we get some new fresh faces in here from that Phillies squad. So give us all a follow. Ben, before you head out of here, I know you got to drop first. We're not going into any other topics. We're getting our plugs in. Where can the people find your work and what else you got going on?
Well, obviously, you can find my stuff at PSN, Philly Sports Network. I put out a few articles every week on whatever I'm interested in on the Phillies. If you want to check out my old YouTube channel, which I update from time to time, it's nothing at not in. Wow! Oh my God! I almost just butchered my own name. It is nothing if not inconsistent on YouTube. You can find old school Phillies highlights. You can find new school Phillies highlights. You can occasionally find me at Chestnut Hill Local or in Mainline Today as well if you want to keep up with my stuff.
And at Ben H. Silver right there. So
of course. My Twitter. Where are my hands? Right there. Oh,
there we go.
Ben H. Silver. Beautiful.
Chris, we know what you're doing for the Phillies for us. We know you'll be in the booth this weekend or this week coming up.
No, I'm not until
I think Sean's in the booth for us this weekend. Sean,
I'm on the sidelines, but it's probably good because while the Phillies, it was like what they were 30-14 at home or something. At home, 30-16 at home. I'm pretty sure I've been in the booth for like 6 or 7 of those losses, so it's probably a good.
Just banned yourself, Chris.
Oh, dude, it's been brutal. I was there for the Mets loss. I was there for the first game of the doubleheader loss. I've gotten to cover some good ones. You can find me at C Babos Writes. Phillies getting ready for Eagles to start up training camps next week. So, oh man, that Eagles chat is percolating. So it's nice to see after a long championship winning offseason, but a very long offseason. So the Eagles are starting to slowly get the birds back to the nest, and as always for me, the NHL kind of rules the roost. So. A lot of Capitals content on the hockey writers, working on pulling together some Flyers stuff, not on PSN, unfortunately, but around the other interwebs. So you can find everything at the place below. See Babos Writes.
And you mentioned the Eagles. They have their championship ring ceremony later today. So make sure you stay tuned for that. Chris gives us great stuff on the Phillies, great stuff on the Eagles. And he does our weekly Flyer show here on YouTube. So definitely give that a follow. Guy is a hockey scout. So if you really want to learn hockey, if you want to get in while this young Flyer squad is starting to grow a little bit and learn a little bit more about hockey in this squad, you have to tune in every single week.
Such a great time to get such a great time. Matvey Michkov alone is worth the price of admission.
Oh, yeah.
They added another skilled forward in Trevor Zegras, added Porter Martone at the draft. I could go on, but a really good time to get into the Flyers now. Get in on the bandwagon while they're at the bottom of the hill.
Good idea. Good idea. You know, I've been following closely. Great stuff from Chris there. You can follow me at Kyle Fisher 45. It's missing from this while we have all 3 guys in, but at Kyle Fisher 45 on X and Blue Sky, at Kyle Fisher Media on YouTube. All of our stuff gets filtered through at Philadelphia SN, PhillySportsNetwork.com. You can always catch me on Sean Brace's show Wednesdays on the Daily Ticket on Fox PHL, The Gambler. And you can catch me out. If you follow me on Twitter, you'll know the next time I'm on the Fantastic Sports Show on Fox Sport 29 Philly as well. Talking all things Phillies. Here on Alley Talk every single Friday at 2 o'clock through PSN. Chris, Ben, thank you guys so much again for joining us. Always a great show. Great to have you guys on. Very knowledgeable sports talk. Love that we get to do this whenever you guys can hop on. So just appreciate the love, appreciate the support, and appreciate the awesome content that you guys put out every single week. We hope that you guys appreciate it because we appreciate you. Thank you again so much for watching this week's Alley Talk here on Philly Sports Network.
Hit that like button.